Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And well, we've talked about the Canadian economy a lot in the past, and we've talked about the vast amount of taxes, the vast amount of regulations, the vast struggle that so many people face, including bankruptcies in the near future. And this article really is still just as bearish because the fact of the matter is we got massive government involvement, massive banker manipulation, and as this article from Zero Hedge says, Canadian stocks tumble into red year to date as energy industry slumps. And Canadian stocks are now trading at their lowest since October. Canada's oil and gas industry stocks are tumbling in 2018, down over 6% year to date, and are weighing on the broad Canadian stock market, which has also given up any of its 2018 gains. And interestingly enough, in this article, Peter Terzakian of oilprice.com says, are Canadian oil prices set to rebound and rescue stocks? Well, for that, I guess we'll go to John. Are Canadian oil prices going to rebound and rescue the Canadian stock market?
Well, at least they're hoping for a big rebound on oil prices. There've been lots of talk in Norway and other countries around the world that are very dependent on oil, and Canada is one of them. We talked about that lots before. What we might see is that the thing here is everybody wants to produce their oil and sell it onto the free market. The free market, that was very terrible of me saying that, actually, because the OPEC is a cartel, setting the oil price, setting the supply. So
colluding with government.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what we're going to see is as all this new, now that oil prices is bouncing above that 65 level up to 70, you're going to see a lot of the expensive oil coming online again, fracking, offshore oil, a lot of more, production is going to start to pick up, and that what that's going to create is, of course, more oil supply into the economy. Meanwhile, things like the Baltic Dry Index is sloping down quite substantially lately, which is the transportation of goods and services around the world. So we're seeing, things are kind of slowing down in the economy. We saw kind of a minor tremors in the stock markets in other markets all around the world was negative suddenly. Out of, being on a euphoric rise just recently.
Well, how could any company be super excited or any investor be super excited about the future of Canada when, Trudeau just today actually said, we've got a plan C, D, E, and F for NAFTA. And I was just surprised that he even knew the alphabet. But I mean, it's insane that anyone would want to put any investment into Canada when there's no competition. Like, look at the States. I mean, look, the stock market in the U.S. is overheating and it's going to blow too. But when you look at the amount of regulations being taken out of the realm of, manipulation of businesses and corporations, then you see the lowering of taxes. I just don't understand how Canada is supposed to compete against that when they're adding regulations, adding taxes. The tax rate is just constantly going up at all times. John, you got some interesting stats here.
Yeah, as you can see, the government here is really substantially increasing in size. You see a constant deficit, put forward by the government. And we haven't even gotten the latest numbers for 2017, so we'll see how that goes. Now, of course, when it comes to the taxes, what's interesting, as the Trudeau government came in, they promised the middle class and the poor that they were going to cut taxes for them. Well, if you take a look at the chart here, it went from 29 to 33%. And then, of course, corporate taxes stayed just stable. They didn't move at all.
And they're also, yeah, of course, it's about stopping the big businesses and helping the little guy. Meanwhile, the little guy pays more and the big guys don't pay as much. Personally, I just think you should just eradicate it all. But exactly. I mean, one thing that I find interesting, though, is there's the hidden taxes as well. I mean, we can go into inflation all day, just massive amounts of inflation by a dollar devaluation, the printing of fiat currency. All fiat currency eventually reverts to its intrinsic value of zero. Always has, always will, going back to 1024 AD. But of course, there's also, the carbon tax, and the carbon tax is also a tax on everything because, any exporting or importing, it costs money. You have to pay taxes on it. It's in order to stop pollution. Meanwhile, it's just causing companies to pay way too much out of pocket, alongside the wage hikes, everything else, the regulations, the taxes, put small businesses out of business and prop up major corporations, which is exactly what the Liberal government is doing.
Yeah, we also have the bear tax. You got to remember the bear tax here in Manitoba, as an example, is 48%. 48% of the price of. So that's a substantial tax.
And tobacco. I mean, I quit smoking, but I just the amount of money you spend on a pack of smokes in Canada, like in a lot of cases, you pay $20 for the same pack you'll get for $10 or $11 in the States, and the U.S. has heavy taxes on them as it is.
Yeah. So how do you believe that the stock market is going to go and do well when you tax businesses like so much? And this is just a constant increase. You got to remember the corporate tax stayed straight, but all this implementation of carbon taxes now all around Canada, how is that going to have an impact on oil production? And everything in the economy has to now pay the carbon credits, or they have to pay a certain percentage in a carbon tax. So they're substantially hitting everybody from everywhere with taxation. They're just literally like strangling the economy, and then they're wondering why the economy is kind of slowing down a bit. It's not wondering why. You're seeing, even I was looking at the M3 of Canada, and M3 as well has a little bit of a trend now downslope. Which
Explain what M3.
Yeah, M3 is all the money in supply, like all debts and everything that exists in Canadian dollars, and that's from what I saw on the chart that you can show here, is that you have a minor actually downslope now that is substantial if you look at the historical scale of it. So I think we're starting to hit that top of all the debt that we have created here in Canada, all this mass amount of debt that have been driving the economy. And I think we're going to see slowdown, because that's what debt does. It over indebts a sector in the economy. And then what happens is, when there's nobody left in that side of the economy to get into more debt, then it's going to collapse down, because the interest on it you need to create more debt in order to pay all the accumulated interest. So somebody's going to fail there, right? That there's going to be failures in that sector of the economy. But now the problem is you got debt everywhere in Canada. You got the housing, everywhere, right?
And that's what I think Robert Kiyosaki would call bad debt. And that's one of the things that it's a main point of, I think, any of our reports on this subject, is that if you're shoved down a bottomless pit of debt, you are forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, which puts you in perfect servitude. That's exactly where they want you, because a populace in debt is a populace in servitude. And, they want to manipulate everything into oblivion. They want to maneuver and manipulate. First of all, they say, well, it's into prosperity. They manipulate it up, and it starts to crash down. So they shove a whole bunch of more manipulation into that and just create vast amounts of debt, and they push it up a bit more. And, eventually it's totally unstable. It cannot go up forever. In fact, we got a comment on one of our videos today, John, that I would like to hear your thoughts on. Okay. Some guy said a market that is controlled or manipulated cannot crash. I started laughing out loud, but I'd love to hear what you thought.
Well, of course, it would never crash, right? Like Janet Yellen says, and all these other central planners. That's what they believe. They actually believe that they can manipulate an economy into just continuously forever. Look at, for example, the Soviet Union. How well did that centrally planned economy go? Or the Venezuelan central planned economy go? How did that go? How did that go for your economy over there? Sitting there eating all this yummy food over at with Maduro over in Venezuela, while his populace is starving. We all know what happened with Soviet Union and Cuba is struggling, and North Korea. All these centrally planned economies are really struggling, and it's because central planners believe that they could plan the whole economy and make it work for them. Meanwhile, the free economy is trying to work for itself without the interference. It wants to decide itself what's going to happen next, and that's what anybody in economics today doesn't understand, that the market cannot be controlled. The market is working in its own ways. It sets out on, for example, if innovation hits something, people are trying to innovate and create things, and then the central planners comes in, let's regulate this side of the economy, and then of course that part of the economy slows down, and it dies out the innovation that they could have had.
Well, this is a comment that the guy posted on my Alan Greenspan video from earlier today, where he warned of the stock market bubble. It's more than just a bubble. It's all coming down. He thinks it's just going to correct and then just swiftly go back up in the long term too, not in the short term, which is the more likely reality. But looking at this comment, this guy says manipulated markets don't crash, and I just said, well, that's a laugh. And he's like, he replied, control is never lost. Go back to your slave job in Slavelandia. I mean, these are the comments that we get from people that obviously
there was no argument there, really. But
no,
yeah.
there's never any argument. I just thanked him for making me laugh.
To discredit you. That's always what happens, Josh, and we've seen so much of this throughout the years where we've done this. Always get criticized, but usually never anybody has an answer back to you after you come with a rebuttal to them calling you an idiot.
Well, I like when I bring them a whole bunch of stats, and the guy actually did respond back after saying, I do know what I'm talking about. Those were all controlled crashes. As a good reporter like yourself, I thought you would have known that. Who felt the pain of those crashes? Only the peasants. So it was a controlled crash. Well, it was a controlled rise too, and that's an exact point there. I'm talking about a controlled market that's manipulated, and then it's crashed into oblivion. And who suffers? The peasants. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If you watch the videos, but of course, a lot of people. That's far too difficult for a lot of people to actually do.
Well, just to talk about controlled and centrally planned economy, look at the substantial rise, and we did a video back on this, and I did a steamed article on it. Where we talked about the meteoric rise in the central bank's balance sheets. And of course, Bank of Canada is no different from anybody else. They're doing exactly the same. They're buying up assets and debt from the banks. And what that is, it's basically a bailout. It's a constant bailout of the economy, trying to keep it up and running and on fumes, basically. That's just an infusion on new capital to take bad assets off the balance sheets of institutions. Then they put cash back in their hands, and then go and do the same thing over again. And then you got to do it. It's just a terrible management of the economy. Like this whole thing with central bankers, trying to fix the economy and saying that, we really have figured this one out. It's different this time. No, it's not different. Every single time a central bank comes into play, it always fails because it tries to manage, and then it ends up. I did another article that came to my mind. I said that, the Federal Reserve will own everything, then nothing. And that's where we're heading here in Canada and everywhere else.
The Bank of Canada.
Yeah, they're basically going to buy up everything as everything is failing. They're going to keep on trying to prop it up as it's coming down. And they're just going to keep on buying and buying and buying until they're literally like a communist state.
Like a communist state?
Well, they are, but it's for people that don't understand it. I'm saying
I'm just looking at like the planks of communism. Central banking is right in there, close to the top. I mean, I'm just looking at going forward. Canada is in a lot of trouble. So is the United States. So is Britain. So is this has nothing to do with the leaders. Trudeau is an idiot. I can't stand him. But in the end, Trudeau has no actual say. He's just a puppet that he goes up there and puts his thumb in his fist and all that kind of garbage. But he doesn't ever actually say anything. He doesn't know how to answer any of the questions. He's not the guy pressing buttons and going, this is going to happen. He has nothing to do with anything. He's just a puppet. So we can't even look at the leaders. We got to look at those who are behind closed doors. And that goes for in the United States with Trump as well, and any country in the world that you go to. It's all just run by central banking cartels and big government now, and it's a government behind the scenes, and the majority enslaving the minority. But that comes down to the solutions that we bring forward as much as humanly possible here at WAM, because if we don't, we're going to get in trouble in the comments. So as I always say, food, water, shelter, self-defense, so you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Of course, tangible assets, gold and silver, decentralized things like cryptocurrencies, as long as you do your own due diligence. This is our opinion, not financial advice, but I think it's pretty clear. And of course, financial stability and financial responsibility, self-sustainability, because you cannot have freedom without responsibility. It's a hallmark. John?
Yeah, and you also need a pet beaver. It's very important for your self-sustainability here in Canada.
Yeah, get a pet beaver. Chew up those fiat bills. Oh wait, that's polymer. It doesn't even work in Canada.
No, but he can help you. He can help you chop down trees. It's a very valuable tool. I'm just saying.
You can make origami out of the polymer notes that you get.
And then the origami. But I was talking about the beaver. But
okay.
Yeah, the beaver, that might be the wrong word here in Canada. It's not politically correct probably. So I'm gonna just say that. Well, I said beaver, so I'm gonna say it again. But anyways. Now we got very off topic here, Josh. But let's get
good way to end the video.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say at the end of the video here, also another great thing would be to take a look at my book, Canada, the Greatest Economy in the World, ? Because I talk about these fundamentals that
Up on Amazon.
yeah, that are wrong with Canada, and then you can actually understand why things are happening as it is in Canada right now. So I just try to give people an overview for the not for the intermediate person. This is for the everyday person to understand what the heck is going on with the Canadian economy, so you can actually start to take a step back, overview the economy. It's like, listen, I've been told so many wrong things from these people that are in, leaders in the economy or in the politics, and they've been all lying to you. And now we can step back and actually see the truth about the economy.
Yeah. And there is a beaver on the cover, and a literal beaver. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely suggest people check that book out, Amazon.com. Make sure to get a copy. It's really good. I did the foreword on it, of course, and it's, it really helps explain these issues that we have a hard time, most of us comprehending, because it seems more difficult than it really is. It's actually quite simple in the end. And you're just thinking of beavers still. And, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. There's not a whole lot of talk about beavers, I assure you, in the book, but it's a really good book. So make sure to get that. Until next time. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Beaver change. Like what you see here at WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube as the Anti-Defamation League comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. You can also find me at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post via Steem, the cryptocurrency. You can also find our Bitcoin address in the description and the comments below, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And don't forget to come on down to Anarchapulco in Acapulco, Mexico in February, one of the best events of the year, and you can save money on your tickets by typing in promo code WAM. That's WAM. We'll leave the link below for you, and until next time, don't forget to subscribe. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.